Yes.
Nicole Bruno.
I know.
Welcome to the first hour.
Thank you. Yeah, Nicole Bruno, my new name.
It is. It is. Are you going to go with Nicole Bruno?
Fully, yeah. I mean, once we signed the license, I, became Nicole Bruno, and then post honeymoon, because we're going to leave the country. Post honeymoon, I'll do like all the paperwork, because that'll take a while to get like your passport and stuff. But yeah, no, I'm Nicole Bruno. Yeah.
You've been married for a month and
A month.
a month and a couple days.
Yeah. It's a new life.
It is a new life.
Yeah, it's actually funny. The first thing people say is like, oh my God, how does it feel? I'm like, Ben and I were married from like the day we met.
Yeah.
So it's like, it feels no different. I mean, there's some things, I don't know when this will not feel like, oh my God, but like when he's on the phone and we were booking travel yesterday and he was saying to the person that was helping him book it, okay, and then for my wife, can we get this seat? And I was like, ooh, for my wife. Like
That's
the
so
change
fun.
from, for my fiance, like that didn't phase me as much. Like, but there is like the word wife is like a powerful word. So I feel it now.
It's real. Have you been
Yes.
able to decompress
Yes.
from the wedding?
Oh my gosh. For the first week after the wedding, I did absolutely nothing. Like truly zero. Didn't move, watched TV for days and days. Ben had to go right back to work. It's like summer's his busy, whereas I was like taking a week to just like come back to life, sleep, eat like horrible foods, and just like bask in my bliss. And then I think I took like 2 weeks probably to kind of like just get my head, right again. I wasn't like a stressed out bride ever, but there's just so much that happens before a wedding that you kind of need like a week or two just to be. And then also like, I didn't want to see or talk to anyone other than my husband. I was like, I just want this to be our time. Mm-hmm. So we really haven't seen anyone. Like when I was coming over here today, I was like, oh, I've seen Kelsey since our wedding. And I haven't, because we haven't seen anyone. We've just been like, by ourselves being obsessed with each other.
Well, which is, I was like, I'm not even going to text them for like
but now
a couple
we're like,
weeks.
okay, we're ready for friends again.
Totally. Because you need that time to just like relax.
Yeah. And we didn't do like the immediate honeymoon.
Right.
The next, few months we're going to be traveling a fair amount. But yeah, we just kind of wanted like alone time, date nights, hang out with ourselves.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
Being married is really fun.
I love it already.
Yeah.
It is amazing knowing that like we planned this amazing wedding and now we never have to plan one ever again. And, we have the rest of our lives. The best part about the fiance period, I always tell this people, I'm like, plan your future, not your wedding. Mm-hmm. We had this amazing wedding. A wedding planner planned it.
Yeah.
I had to like, digitally compare linens, but I wasn't, measuring things with like I was not planning it, because the best part about being engaged for me was all of the life planning that Ben and I did. Because when you think about when you're dating, you're like, you say dreams, right? But like they're still dreams, and you say them to the person that you're in our case, like we knew we would get married, but not until you're married do those dreams start happening, or, until then it's just fantasy, or it could just be like fun talk. And then when you're engaged, that's when you like start acting on those dreams and being like, we like made our joint account, and then we're starting to talk about like what we're building for, and what are, where do we want to live in the next 1 to 5 to 10 years. And then all those dreams that you have when you're dating you start acting on them. And now that we're married, we're like, oh, we do them now. So it's very cool.
It's such a really fun phase, because there's so much build up throughout the engagement and wedding process.
Yeah.
And now it's like, you get to live your lives together and do whatever you want to do.
I know. It's so great. We have so much fun life plans too. And I'm like so impatient that I want them all right now. And I know that if we do them now, then I'll just replace them with even more. Whereas Ben is like, all right, relax yourself. Like,
I love it.
That will be in this next year. Yes,
sure.
we got it. And then, hopefully we can start planning life for like a family in the next year. And, we don't quite know when that will happen, or when we'll be blessed to have it happen, but that's like so exciting to me. And because when you're dating and you're engaged, you're trying not to have that happen. So like now that we're married, I'm like, oh, like that. I mean, that's been my biggest dream my whole life, like
cool
finding my partner and who I'm building a family with. And so I can't wait for like that part. But it's funny because when you're dating, it's like your narrative totally changes. It's like, don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant.
Yes.
And now I'm like, like that's the biggest dream that can become a reality, like soon.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
So you've wanted that for a long time?
Oh, forever. Yeah.
Cool. That's amazing.
Yeah.
With the wedding, I mean, it was, we talked offline a little bit about it, and it was just so beautiful. Everything about it was just full of joy, and it was organized so well. Everything was gorgeous, and the food was amazing, and dancing, and the band.
The band was crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. They were like so good.
I was trying to describe it to people, like,
It was a concert.
it was.
Because during dinner, I remember looking around people at my table and we were all like, no one was talking to each other. We were just like looking at the band.
Yes.
They had this one song towards the end of dinner and I think everyone was just like.
Everyone stopped talking and they were looking at this guy. When the guy was singing the Journey song.
Everyone goes, how about Journey? And I was like, yeah.
I mean, there's some people who like are like good musicians and like people who like know music and they're like in awe.
Well,
you know?
when we booked that band, you're told you're, booking that band, but there is a chance because these people are so high level that John Legend might see them one day and poach one for his band and go on tour. So like,
wow.
So 8 months in advance, we spent on this band, but there was a chance that we weren't, and we booked actually those 4 people. Like that they were the photos, they were the videos I watched were those 4 people. And it was like a 12-person band, but the 4 like main faces I'm referring to. And there was a chance that like 2 of them might have been like poached by like Adele or whoever, because that happens. People see them and then are like, yo, you. And we had like musicians in the crowd. I was like, I hope someone poaches these people because this band was like crazy.
So talented. And I was trying to describe it to someone. I'm like, it's almost like, I don't know the right word, impressionists maybe? Like, because when they would sing a certain song, they sounded like the artist that was singing it. And the way that they did mashups, it was like kind of like an old school song with a more modern one. And it was just so fun.
I can't wait for the video. We had great videographers there and you get your videos, we'll probably get them back shortly. But I cannot wait for those videos because when you're the bride, like you are being pulled every which direction. My vocal cords hurt from having to talk to so many people. I feel like the bride is maybe the one person in the groom that like doesn't get to just like zone out and watch the band for a little bit, or because I had to go while people were zoned out talking to the band. I was saying hi to like my uncles and so I was just always going, but I want to like rewatch everything from that day so I can relive it with a different set of eyes than I was living it in.
Of course. Do you have any highlights?
Oh my goodness. The ceremony was like the best thing of all time. I think Ben and I's speeches were so us, like anyone who knows us as individuals and as a couple. I had the amount of people that came up to me during cocktail hour and was like, I was sobbing during your speeches. And then I was also laughing hysterically. Like even my mom texted me the next day and she was like, would you and Ben mind if you guys like, can I have your speeches? I want to save them. So we like, we're like, no, of course. And then she called me like a week later and was like, I just keep rereading them. Like they were just so, she's like, did you guys discuss like the framework of a speech? And I was like, no, we both did our own thing, never really spoke about it. And we had like jokes in the same points. We vowed the way you're supposed to vow to each other. We complimented each other. We poked fun. Like we had kind of like the same structure without ever talking about what like our vows were going to be. They were just so true to us and true to us as a couple. And so nothing like, if I were to like black out the entire night and then like one vision pops to my mind, it would be the vows. Cause like everyone, there's 100 people in the audience, but like I didn't care because I was just like staring at Ben. I'll get like emotional if I think about it because that was just like the best part ever.
It was really special and just so cool to see your hearts, and have that so apparent and just how good of friends you are. It just like every element, it was an emotional roller coaster in the best way. Like you just felt all of these wonderful things and you're like, these 2 people are meant to be together.
Oh yeah.
They're so compatible.
Yeah. It's so funny. Cause like, there's no doubt in my mind that like, we're not going to be like 95 years old and like playing checkers. I don't know. Like there's just, it's just so, from the day we met, we were just us. So it's real. And I got a ring on my finger.
Yeah,
he has a ring on his finger. Ask him how that feels. It's an adjustment for him. He is like, I mean, he's never worn jewelry. For women, it's like, woo, more jewelry. Right. And for him, he's like, he'll like take it off to lift and then he'll forget to put it back on, which is so obvious because like it's his first ever piece of jewelry. And but I'm like, put your ring on. I'm like, I see you in the car driving away, and he'd be like, oh, caught me. Like, it's totally. So it's going to be an adjustment for him to have to wear jewelry. And I'm like, yeah, more bling.
Yeah. Dennis was the same way because he had never worn jewelry or rings of any sort, and so you're just not used to.
For men, it's
an
adjustment. Yeah,
I hear that completely. Oh my gosh, there were so many things I was like, wow, this is so fun, so amazing, impressive. But one of my favorite parts was when you brought out a basket of flip-flops.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Like at that point, that's when I was like, my shoes were not a good choice.
Did you put on the flip-flops?
The second I heard they existed,
hilarious.
This one girl who I didn't know her, but I saw her putting on the shoes, and she saw me looking at her, and she's like, "They're right up there. Go get them."
Oh my gosh, yeah,
that
was good. And then because Ben and I, so our attire was ladies in long, men in suits. Color, we wanted fun summer color, and Ben told any guy he spoke to, by the way, I'm wearing sneakers, so like wear sneakers. So like Ben is a sneakerhead. It's only suiting that people wear sneakers. So the groomsmen's wives, Ben for his groomsmen got them all matching Nikes, and cool. Nike made these custom Bruno Nikes.
What?
On the inside in our something blue was a blue sole that said "Just I Do It." Like they're the coolest shoes. So he got a bunch of his groomsmen's wives, myself, and a couple other people, white sneakers. So I had sneakers to change into. My bridesmaids changed into their pajamas. So I knew that like a good proportion of people were going to get comfortable. And I was like, if I didn't have those sneakers, I was like losing my mind. So I'm so last minute purchase. The two last minute purchases were those flip flops. And then, everyone had those strobe lights like dancing.
Yeah, those are so fun.
Those were such a hit. My mom bought them and brought them.
That's so cool.
Yeah, she like ordered them from Amazon because she was like, wait, you guys didn't get lights? Like my mom's a partier. So she was like, you didn't get lights? And I was like, no, like we're older. Like Ben's 37, I'm 33. We're not like at a frat party. And she was like, I'm getting lights. So those lights that make all of our pictures look so cool and just were so fun. Everyone's like dancing around with those lights. That was my mom.
I love your mom.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
She was a time. Yeah, she and my dad were like having the best time of their lives.
I mean, it's so fun to see how happy they were, and your dad's speech was amazing. Your sister's was like it was just wonderful.
It was the best.
And now you get to be married for the rest of your life.
I know, it's great.
Oh my gosh. Well, you're amazing, and
Thanks.
I am so excited to talk with you because you have such an interesting like history and where you are now with what you do. So, how would you describe the work that you do?
So I'd say people most commonly know me as NOBREAD. And it's interesting as we talk about wedding too, because wedding is ultimately a rebirth, right? So right now I went from Nicole Kogan to Nicole Bruno. My blog was called NOBREAD, and it started when I was 23 years old. I'm, a month out from turning 34. So like 10 years ago, I started NOBREAD. It was a gluten-free guide to New York City. There was no pictures of myself. It was just food photos of gluten-free food all across New York. That got picked up by, it was like that time of like the food porn scene, and, New York foodies were so cool. And so my blog like shoots up in popularity. It's doing great. I come out to LA. I launched NOBREAD LA. I had this ambassador system of people launching NOBREAD in all their cities, but it was just a food guide with like food photos. And the NOBREAD brand has evolved so much. I would say like, maybe like 3 years into starting NOBREAD, I started posting me on it. And then I would say in like, when I was like 29, 30, NOBREAD really barely had food on it and became, my life as Nicole Kogan, this like single girl traveling the world, like eating, doing wellness stuff. Yeah. And so it keeps evolving what it is. And, now that I'm in this rebirth of being married, I look at NOBREAD and I say like, when I started it, I was gluten-free. Gluten-free was rare. It was like a, special thing to me. Now I'd say like everyone's just gluten-free just because. Like it's, there's keto, there's vegan, there's carnivore. Like now there's just so much that gluten-free, just being gluten-free, yes, that's me. So it's, of course, special, but it's not a super special niche anymore just because that's the way like the world has gone. Like better for you is just now here. So I look in this rebirth of where I want my brand to go next. And Ben and I talk about it too. Like I've never once changed my Instagram handle, but does that original, like what NOBREAD was when I was 23 is not what it is today. So is this that moment where I, change the handle and become Nicole Bruno or something, Nicole, whatever it is, and, keep evolving my brand to be true to who I am right now. Because from, 10 years ago, I would go to restaurants and I'd say I'm gluten-free and the chefs would come out and be like, shoot, okay, so what does that mean? Like high-end restaurants in New York, like no one knew gluten-free. I was the first really doing it.
Because you have an autoimmune?
Yeah, so I have celiac. So when I was 19, I went to Cornell for undergrad. And when I was in my sophomore year, end of sophomore year, historically, my whole life, I was always like crazy sick. Like you and I could be sitting talking when we were like 16 at the pool, and I would just like excuse myself to throw up. But there was no like, or if I had strep throat, like it wasn't like a 2-day thing with antibiotics. It was like a 10-day thing with 3 rounds of antibiotics. Like I was always like crazy. My sicknesses were always extreme. But this world of health and wellness didn't really exist. So everyone's just like, oh, like you're that sick kid, or like you're the migraine kid, like. And so I was always sick. And then when I was in college, it got so bad. But I was living in a sorority house in the basement with like in a moldy room probably. And so my illness got so bad then I leave school. That last month of school, I had to take finals remote. My mom had to come live with me in a hotel for a little bit. I was so sick. I was in and out of the hospital. I was like, what is going on? I go home for the summer. I break out in full body hives. I'm just like, every day gets worse and worse. I thought leaving the campus would make me feel better, like less stress, no cafeteria food. And I just kept getting worse and worse. And I was having an autoimmune relapse, or my immune system was just like fully breaking down. The way it was explained to me, and this can apply to anyone who maybe dealing with like something that feels like an unexplained illness, is your body has a threshold. And so for me, let's say this is like my gluten threshold where my celiac can withstand. And it's, years and years of eating gluten, I'm pounding the threshold. And now I've dissolved all the villi in my intestine, so I have no protecting barrier there. And then my body went like this and all hell broke loose. So that was my journey, was how to get myself from here, the floodgates open. The doctor I first went to told me he felt like I had the immune system of a newborn. Like he was like, we have to regrow you. Wow. Because I was so broken. And this is the summer of my sophomore year, and I was determined to be able to go back to school for my junior year. I wasn't going to take time off. I didn't want to, but I was so sick I was going to have to. And so that summer I went like crazy into figuring out what was wrong with me, trying to be clean, trying to be healthy. And I was able to go back to school 3 months later. But that first year I would go home maybe like once a month just because I didn't feel the best. But, it took through college to, figure out how to be. And then when I went into the city, I was working at JP Morgan. I got that job when I was in school. I was on that finance path. And a large part of the finance world is client entertaining. So I was always going out for these restaurant meals. I never knew what I could eat. And that's what ultimately gave birth to NOBREAD, because I'd say during that time of junior, senior year in college, I cooked my first ever meal. I would go to the farmer's market because I learned over that summer when I was really sick that food was my medicine. And I became obsessed. But I was already on the finance track. And, if you're from the East Coast, you're like bred to go into that. So I was already doing that. So it never dawned on me that this could be like a career for me. But I knew it was like a passion, just feeling, because I was so sick. Yeah. I just wanted to feel good. And that's what gave birth to like my love for food and wellness. And then when I was in New York and I was always going to restaurants, and I'm a very social person. I love going out, going to new restaurants. Like even right now I'm trying to get I told Ben I want to go to this new Italian place. And he's like, what are you going to eat? I was like, the Bronzino. Like there's Italian places have like the best fish. Are you kidding? But I love finding the gluten-free options at places. And that's what gave birth to NOBREAD. And then NOBREAD, became what it is.
And so it started off as a blog / food guide. So someone's going to New York and they're like, okay, I'm going to sort through this and I'm going to find the Italian restaurant.
Yeah, you would click like East Village. Let's say you wanted to go to dinner in East Village. I had all these filters. My tech was like so intense. It was like you could filter by occasions, like girls' night, work dinner, date night, dinner with the parents, or you could pick a section of the city, East Village, West Village, Upper East Side. And I had been to all these restaurants and I had reviews of what I ate, photos, and then a customizable gluten-free menu. And I had this technology that on the back end would allow me to check off what was gluten-free so people could go and see these menus. The problem with that was that so in my mind, I was creating a tech company because again, if you're from Cornell and you're not just a blogger, you're going to start a business. So I was like, what scalable business can I sell to Facebook? So I was like trying to build this tech website, but it was impossible. Restaurants are constantly changing their menus. Weekly, some now do daily, seasonally. I couldn't keep up as I added more restaurants with menu changes. So that's when I was like, I have to make this a personal blog, have a disclaimer being like, I went here in September of 2016. Menu was true at the time.
Right.
So that's, the restaurant guides were hugely popular. But then also I had my Instagram following was growing. And I was posting like all this delicious food. I was showing my whole motto with NOBREAD is and always has been just because your life is affected doesn't mean your lifestyle has to be. So like I was saying, like I love one of my favorite restaurants in Los Angeles is Giorgio Baldi, and Ben goes there and gets like 3 plates of pasta for himself. And I'm like fish, veggie, the prosciutto, like all the other things. But people in my situation who are gluten-free, I'm also dairy-free, just think like, oh, I'm not going there. But I want to show you that you can go to all these places. So that's how it began. But then as we talk about evolution, I realized I was getting all these new Instagram followers and blog followers. But if you didn't live in New York, why would you care? So that's when I started launching other cities. And then I was featured in like Elle Japan, picked up something and was just so cool. And all of a sudden I saw overnight I'm getting all these new followers and all their Instagram handles were in Japanese. And I was like, well, why? They're all going to unfollow me when they see that. Why would they care? And that's when I got into recipes because I wanted to create content that would be universally liked. And that's what started the recipes. And then, evolving from there and then putting myself as the face of the brand to make me, have there be a relatable voice. Maybe someone just felt like they liked me and wanted to follow.
That's so amazing.
Yeah.
So when you were at JP Morgan, you're finance. What kind of work were you doing there?
I was equity sales. So
what does that mean?
There's 2 parts of the job. There's equities are your day-to-day stocks. So, if you Facebook, for example, there's research people at JP Morgan and they're doing all of they're in sectors. So there's like the tech researchers, the consumer researchers, healthcare researchers. They're doing all of the like intense research on a company and creating a thesis about it. Should we tell our investors to buy, sell this stock? So they're doing the research. They pitch their research to me in sales, and then I go out to my clients who are hedge funds and institutional investors, and I'm pitching to them. But it's similar to anything else. Like you're building trust with your clients, but then I would pitch them a stock. And even though it's the researchers and the bankers who are doing like the intense modeling and the intense research, I'm the voice pitching the stock. So that's one part of it. And the second part, which is super interesting, which is what got me also, because I do a lot of investing now, is there's IPO roadshows. So for example, if JP Morgan is taking Facebook public, that relationship starts with the bankers, but then my team's job was to bring Facebook to institutional clients and have face-to-face meetings, and then we're selling bits of the IPO to our clients. So we were like the sales team. So if a deal came in through banking or an idea came in through research, it comes to us, and then we pitch it to all the clients who are the biggest hedge funds and investors in the world. So that's where I got my knack for investing, because now I also do a lot of investing, and that started from my passion there.
Okay, I have so many questions. Okay, so these researchers, you have this research report. It just comes in the form of a report. then you read through it. Do you get to choose, like, if you get 3 reports, or you're like, I feel like this one is going to fit this client the best, so I'm going to prioritize
exactly.
this. And you bring your thoughts and opinions to these people.
The reason why I'm always going out to dinner in that role is because I am going out to dinner with my clients. I'm trying to befriend them, become their best friend, get to know them. Now I know them on a personal level, what they would want to hear about, and I know them on a professional level, what stocks they care about. So when you're dealt research, you know exactly who to, you don't just pitch it to everyone. You know exactly who wants to know it. And again, I was young too. So I was a junior salesperson. So I had 3 seniors who I supported, but I also had my own, by the time I left, I had my own clients.
Sure.
So you learn a lot when you're along with your senior salesperson. And yeah, I mean, if I had wanted to make finance my career, that was the perfect desk for me, the perfect team. I'm so grateful for that experience. But the entire time I was there, I knew I was just meant to be doing something bigger. And it's funny because I catch up with my friends who are still there, and I'm like, so how is it? Like, and they'll like tell me about, like, yeah, same shit. That was 3 years in. I was like, wow, if I'm here in 20 years, it's just the same shit every single day. Mm-hmm. And I just felt like I was too young to be doing like the same thing.
Right.
And like getting stuck into that.
I mean, you seem very entrepreneurial, and you're always researching and trying new things and all this kind of stuff. Is that something that you just have always had? Is that something that you learned from your parents? Did you have like a muse that you were going after?
I think that I've always taken a lot of pride in like being an academic. And in that, I don't know if it was the drive because I liked being like the best at something or what it was, but I was always very like academically hungry. And with my work, you know, once I didn't have anything to study for anymore, but I had a profession, I've always been very professionally hungry. And it's not money, it's not fame, it's like I just am like I genuinely am like an intellect. Like I've always said that I'm like a self-proclaimed nerd. Like I am not cool. Like I love like
I beg to differ.
Yeah, like I love like books, and I love learning. So I love challenges. So I've never been competitive with anyone else other than me. Like when another influencer has like a really cool brand deal, I'm like, wow, good for them. Like that's perfect for them. You know, I would love one day for that one day they do something that's more of a me thing. Like I'm never going to try and be like, oh, I should have gotten that person's job. Like, cause I'm just as like nice or cool. No, I'm like that. Oh, wow. It's so perfect for them. One day I hope they do something that's aligned for me. You know, I've been, competitive with myself, very competitive with myself, never with other people. Like I always just so I think that just like always drives me. And then I don't do well being like bored, you know? So even if I'm bored, I gotta be like researching something and that's when, NOBREAD, I really caught that influencer wave, that first like, group of foodie influencers. Now because of like TikTok and 2020, the world became an influencer. Like everyone has a social following. Your dentist probably has a social following. Like everyone does. So it's not as exciting for me anymore to just be doing like brand deals and, that hustle. Also, I'm not 23 anymore. Like when you're 23 to 30, it was like fun, like hustling, going all the blogger events. And now I'm like, I would rather be anywhere else than those, but I did it already. So now I'm just in that next phase of, growth and professional growth with me, but, just against myself. And I always feel like even if I were to like retire and shut down NOBREAD because I just want to be a mom, and hey, that might be what I decide. And you never know.
Right.
I don't think I would ever be able to like just be a mom. I think I would be, a mom with like 17 passions. Yeah. I'd be like on the board of everything you ever saw. Like, cause I just love challenges and I love being busy.
Yeah. I mean, you can tell because I feel like you're like, I am curious about this. I'm going to learn it and I'm going to execute on it.
Exactly. When I started investing, my background is in finance, and I read books on angel investing because that's a specific subset of finance that I wasn't necessarily taught. And I was like, well, before you do something, you have to know it. So I, read a book and highlighted the book and read another book. And then I'm like, okay, and then I'll learn as I go. So I should start doing this with like smaller checks at first just to like learn it. I always tell people you learn by doing in whatever it is. So I would just start learning it, on my own. But yeah, I'm very much like, if I'm going to do something, I like do it and I learn about it and I like give myself to it.
That's so encouraging, because I think a lot of times people hold themselves back with being like, well, that's not what I went to school for. I went to school to be a social worker. Right. So like, I'm doing nothing of, I mean, I'm helping people, but like, it's a very different way of executing the skill sets that I have. And I think it's cool to be able to say I can evolve and I can change with the passions that I have and the skills that I develop through what I continue to learn.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I like take such pride in my education and my background. And, but did I need to go to Cornell? I actually say, because people are always like, oh, I didn't go to college and I'm like killing it now. And I love that for them. But for me, I actually think I do so well now because I've what the like skills I picked up in college and then my experience at JP Morgan. Like when people started the influencer wave, I think I have a smaller following, but I probably earned a lot more than a lot of people because I was like a businesswoman, and people would make fun of me all the time for being like the business influencer before I even started the investing part of like my life. And I was like, yeah, because like you have to be a bit of a shark, which I picked up from things I learned at Cornell and at JP Morgan. So I think that, like, I always think, like, if I have a kid and they say that they don't want to go to college, Ben's a trainer and I'm a influencer investor. Like, you actually didn't need, he went to Columbia, I went to Cornell. Yeah. You didn't need our degrees to do what we are doing now. But I think there's a reason why he and I are very successful in what we do. And so I would be like, okay, son or daughter, like, I hear you, but maybe I'm just selfish. I love school. So I'm like, I hope you go because you do learn so many other things, life lessons. For sure. So even though you went to school for social work, there was something in that created a skill within you to be better than, because there's millions of people trying to do what you do, but so there was something you picked up along the way where that, background of yours like actually led to your success right now.
For sure. I feel like there's no time or experience wasted because I mean, in college, like, I was studying social work and psychology and all these things, but the friendships and what I learned about myself, like college for me was a very, very tough time in my life. And so I think it was only good things that came from it. And I do feel like I'm in a different place because of that.
Right. For me, like where I grew up on the East Coast, it felt very much like I had a beautiful, beautiful life and upbringing, and college for me was an extension of that, but it, like exposed me to so many different people that I would never have known growing up. So even and then learning how to adapt to people like that, or people from different parts of the world and from different backgrounds, it's just like this new appreciation. And there's like you're all there. It doesn't matter like where you came from. You're all there as like on the same level.
Exactly.
So I think for me, college was hugely important for socialization and, get me out of the bubble and like see the world, want to see more of the world. And I think like, I always think about too, again, this theme of rebirth. I bring this up a lot because Ben and I truly talk about this. Like, I'll be like, are you like bored right now? Can I talk to you about my rebirth? Yeah. Like, because I don't know where I go next, and which is a beautiful place to be in. Like, I'm super, super happy with where I am. So I don't need to go anywhere. I have this like feeling like I'm supposed to. And, maybe it's just that my work for the next year is to work on learning who Nicole Bruno is. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's to work on becoming a mom. Maybe my work is like writing a book, or maybe my work is going back to school. Like I really don't know, but I have so many things that interest me right now, and it'll all just be another continued evolution of what I started.
It just goes back to you. I feel like you're a type A person.
Yeah.
And also you're willing to think outside the box to all of the potential possibilities. Yeah. And I feel like you don't hold yourself back in that because you were OG in the blogger influencer space. And now you do so much angel investing, which is really, really cool. So, okay. So just break this down for me.
Yeah.
You start monetizing NOBREAD.
Yes.
And is that mostly through brand deals? Brands pay you for ads?
100%. Yeah.
Okay. You sell products though.
I don't have any of my own products.
Okay.
So it's all brand deals. So I left my job at JP Morgan in 2014. I didn't make a penny until like 2016.
Okay.
And then it was just brand deals.
Amazing.
And the brand, it's funny to see like the brand deal curve. I think 2016 brands are like feeling it out, right? So I was like, started making some money and I was like, wow, this is so cool. I can do this. I can pitch Cheerios on why they should work with me. And it was all like a lot of me reaching out to brands.
And are you just like Googling their email address or what does this mean?
LinkedIn.
Okay.
Love
LinkedIn.
my LinkedIn. Me and LinkedIn.
To this day or is this 2016?
No, to this day.
Really?
Because when you're in New York and in corporate worlds, like your life is LinkedIn. Like
Interesting.
you would meet a guy and before like a date, Instagram like wasn't that cool. So you would go on LinkedIn and be like, where does he work? Like that's just like the East Coast, like how people are. I swear if you're from the East Coast and listening to this, you'll be like, yeah, I like looked up the guy's LinkedIn like before. It's just like how people are. So I would find contacts on LinkedIn. I would shoot them messages. I would shoot their email. I would go to press releases and I would find the press contact email address because that's on every single press release is the press person's email. So I would do my own pitching in 2016, 2017. So I really like, I broke six figures for sure in like 2016, just because then once you like see how to do it, then I become obsessive. So I was like stalking and, pitching myself. And that was like 2016. And then the world of brands like really caught on in like 2017, 18, where then they started just throwing money at influencers. Wow. So I feel like there's a bell curve of like this and then 2020, 2021 being almost like the peak. And now there's just so many people, algorithms exist. You're not getting that much return for your buck anymore. So now the brand deal world is like a little bit on the decline.
Right.
But yeah, so my NOBREAD monetization was solely brand deals.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So you're thriving, you're making money, and where did angel investing come from?
So that was all because I'm getting paid to hold a granola bar and I'm getting paid, but then I'm watching those companies grow and I was always trend spotting like we spoke about. So I would say, I'd be like, okay, this is the year that vegan ice cream becomes a huge thing. Like I have a friend who I like trend spot with. And, so I would see these big trends and I would hear about this massive sale of this early company. And I was like, I knew that company was going to do really well. So I had this like company brain and like long-term, does this company sell, go public brain from my JP Morgan days? Or like, how does this company do long-term and what metrics are important? So I've had that training at JP Morgan. And then I'm hearing in the news, just like RX bar sold for 600 million. And I'm like, well, they just gave me like $3,000 to post. Like, imagine if I had given them $3,000 and to invest, and that $3,000, I probably would have gotten like $20,000 back. That's like way cooler pay. So I had that skill set from JP Morgan, and then I knew the consumer trend game. So in 2020, now I'm like sitting with savings. Like and I was like, okay, I've always been very into my own personal finance, and if you just have money sitting earning 0%, like what's the good there too? So I was kind of deciding my own personal finance strategy, and I set aside money for my own little fund that I wanted to invest. And it felt very rewarding for me to start investing in consumer companies because there's more reward personally in talking about a company I'm invested in instead of talking about a company that's just a paid ad.
Right.
So it's a long-term game. I have like 13 plus investments, but I've made $0 so far because it's a long-term game. I think in like 2025, 26, I'll start my first round of investments from like 2020. We'll start having exits, whether they're good or bad. So it's a long-term game, but I invest sizable checks and the return on that could be wildly more than I will ever make by holding a bar. So the incentive with starting investing was intellectual satisfaction and like a financial, just seeing, I think every person, and specifically women, need to make their money work for them. I think it's something that women don't do, whereas like men are more, I don't know, I really don't know why. Is it something that's like a social standard that men were given that they must be the earners and must be thinking about that. But like, why don't women? And I think because when you look at cap tables, which is the list of investors of companies, it's wildly male dominant. So I'm just very passionate about women learning how to invest, even if it's just through a small check and just like, or just a personal finance strategy where you earn like 4% interest on something. Right. Don't just have your money just like sitting there. So I've always been interested in, my major in college is finance. I've always been interested in finance, personal finance, and then investing. When I saw that I had this, perfect storm going for me of understanding the consumer space, having the contacts at brands, and just, knowing how to invest, I think that really, I had this like aha moment. I made my first investment and then I just made like 5 more in that year because I was like so excited by it. And, also I used to only invest in consumer companies because I could talk about them on NOBREAD. It gave me more things to talk about in this, because I was in this phase of where does NOBREAD go from here, which I check in with every year. And now I don't even really invest in consumer companies anymore because I like tech and there's other more cool things in the world to invest in. But I love just learning about different sectors and, trying to get in on, like, there's no reason why you hear about all these people who are the first investor in Uber and like, oh, well, like Ashton Kutcher is the first investor in Uber, but he got the look on the deal because he's Ashton Kutcher. I'm like, well, I'm going to get the look on that deal. It doesn't like it. You don't have to be this like famous person or crazy rich person to get the first look. So now I'm networking in this new space because I want to get first looks on deals and, gain a reputation as an investor.
That's super cool. So is that the difference here is with angel investing? It's like you as an individual approaching companies or companies approaching you. Is that how you would define it, or how would you define it?
So I would say that, there's so many different ways. I approach the companies. At this point, I've gained a reputation for my investing, so I get reached out to a ton. And the community of women who are investors is a small community, but a very tight one. So I'm in angel investing women's groups, and people know what I'm interested in. So if you're an investor and you get past a deck and it's not for you, but it's for me. Like I have like one of my best friends to this day, she was at my wedding. We met 6 months ago, but she's like my best friend. Her name's Maggie. And it's because we started investing together. She and I are very like-minded investors and share a lot of deals together and work a lot together. So it's a very individual thing, but it's also not individual because we share deck. It's actually very community building. There's a lot of angel communities to be in. So even though it's a singular career, it's a very like passionately engaged community of people who do it.
And you lead groups, right? So I'm blanking on what the letters are. SVP?
SPV.
SPV.
Yeah. So now the way it is when you do an angel investment, you're writing a check into a company. And it's, when I'm writing from my own pocket, there's only so much I'm going to put in, because you should only ever put in what you're okay with losing, a personal risk. But there are times where I wish I could write a $250,000 check, but I can't. So what I do, it's called an SPV, and you are pooling. I'm given an allocation of, let's say, $250,000 from, for example, dough, the cookie dough.
Yeah.
I did one for them, and they gave me an allocation of $250,000, and I went out to my network of influencers, friends, family, prominent people who I know care about the space, and I pitched them dough. And it's a ton of work because when a company's like later stage, they don't really take angel checks anymore because they're focusing on getting big funds to invest. But it never hurts to have a strategic angel in. So by Sabina, the founder of Dough, giving me $250,000, she's saving herself from having to talk to 30 different smaller check people. I'm pitching the company as if I'm her. So I know the company inside out. I know all their valuation. I have their business model, their whole data room, their revenue projections. I speak her language. I speak that language. And then I go out to my network of people and I raise the money. So I've gotten into doing SPVs in the last year. I've done 4 now, which is one of the most rewarding experiences because it is very hard and very challenging, especially right now in this like economic downturn. Not a lot of people are trying to invest, and you're building trust and faith with people. And again, that's what I do to teach people how to invest and get women investing, because a lot of those people, so many people come up to me and say, I really want to start investing, but how do you even get a first look?
Right.
So I'm giving people the first look on a deal that they wouldn't have had access to.
So what does that look like? You want a first look. Where are you starting?
If you want a first look at let's say I'm talking to you and you're like, Nicole, I really want to start investing. I'm like, okay, like, what do you think you're interested in? You're like, oh my God, I'm dying. I'm obsessed with like, the way the women's health space has now become like so developed, and I'm looking for something in women's health because I just am so passionate about it. Next time I come across a women's health deck, I would be like, oh my God, Kelsey was telling me she's interested in women's health. I would be like, this one's not for me, but I'm going to shoot it to my friend Kelsey. Is that cool? So that's how a lot of it happens. Or separately, if you're obsessed with a company, the way I first started was I was obsessed, like Partake cookies, I'm an investor in.
Oh, okay.
I'm obsessed with these cookies. I was like, I've eaten every gluten-free cookie under the sun.
Okay.
So I'm like, these cookies are so good. It's from a incredibly amazing founder. I just sent her like a DM, the Partake account, a DM, and then next thing you know, I'm connected to the founder. So if there's a company you're obsessed with, like the most flattering thing you can do is ask them to invest. Every company is reading their DMs. Mm-hmm. So I would just start with like knowing what you're passionate about.
That's really cool. So when you're getting started, are companies, and it probably depends on the company, right? But like, are they looking for, like you threw out $250,000. What's the lowest amount that a company would be interested in?
I mean, you can say to a company like, I'm new at this, I want to put in $5,000. And
gotcha.
If they're early enough on, they'll say yes. If they're late on, if they're at a $50 million valuation already, like they don't want $5,000, they want someone to write $1 million check or $500,000 check. So it's more like if a company's super early, they'll take anything.
And so SVP or PV?
SPV.
SPV. Okay, so if it's an SPV, you probably have more flexibility as an individual, right? Because it's a pool of money.
Yeah.
But if you're one angel and you're wanting to put money in, is there like a sweet spot range that like generally newer companies would be interested in?
I'd say 25 to 50.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes
would
sense.
probably be like a good like average check size.
Interesting.
If you're from an individual. Yeah. I think like a 25 to 50 is like a very healthy number. And then an SPV, when I go out to my network, because it's really just people who aren't investors. That's the difference. An angel investor is like an investor. When I go out to SPV, that's just my network of humans from every walk of life. And their career isn't investing. This might be their first investment. So for them, I say like, just put in like 5 or 10, or I've had people put 50 into my SPVs. Cool. So that's just, it's all your personal risk. But I think a company, if you went to them with like 25, that's like a phenomenal.
They'll be pumped on that.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
If they're like an early stage company. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So let's say you're like, I have $25,000. I need to pick a company that I want to invest in. You've talked about trend, spotting, which I want to learn more about, but I'm really curious about like, how do you evaluate the health of a company? Like what kinds of numbers are important to look at?
So when I am looking at a company, there's a few things I always look at just like right off the bat. One is just the founder, like what's their background and are they humble or do they have an ego? Little things like that, do you trust that person with your money? Like, so it comes down to founders. So like I'll meet with a founder. I'm like, holy shit. Like I met with Sabina from Dough and I was like blown away. I was like, she is a shark. Like there's a reason why she has a company and why I'm the check to a company. Cause I've always thought like, should I start my own company? But that's a different breed of human. Right. Someone who starts their own, company like that. And so it's just this like, feeling that you get from the founder is one, like I have a product that I'm obsessed with and I met with the founder and I thought he was an asshole. And I was like, I will never write him a check because I thought he was an asshole. So I would say like the founder has the ability to suck you in or deter you right away. Secondly, I am a finance girl, a math girl. I always request current numbers, projected numbers. And now that I'm like really, I've done so many investments. I'm like, can I have your projected store growth numbers? Can I have your breakdown and your margins per channel? Like, so I am like I am in it with those questions. Do I expect someone to ask that on their first ever investment? No, but that's my personal strategy. It's like, I need to see the numbers and every company is going to give you their revenue projections. and they're always trying to show you that they can hit like 100 million in 5 years. Like chances are they cannot. So I'm like, okay, if you're going to tell me that, then I need to see the numbers and the breakdowns behind it. And then another big one is for a company to sell, it's very, sought after from the purchaser that the company is profitable. So a company is not going to be profitable in their first, year or two. But, when do they turn profitable is another big thing to ask. And, I'm saying like 3 different things I look at. There are probably like 10 if I were to really think of things that are like non-negotiable. You must ask this to pass my test. But off the top of my head, I would say, I am like in the weeds with the numbers. I am looking for profitability. I'm founder. And then I'm looking there's a healthy balance between what products do you have now and what products are you going to have in the future? Because a company right now, so Partake, for example, they are just crushing it on cookies. And that's the strategy, is to crush on every flavor of cookies, size pouches of cookies. So, they started with 1, and now they have however many SKUs. And then they expanded into a different product line. So you want to show that you have the ability to expand. But you also, if you want to be purchased by a larger conglomerate, they want to buy you with enough white space of things that they can do with you. So there's this balance of, I need to kind of know, what your future product line strategy is. Are you trying to become like the cookie queen, have a product in every single category queen, or, what is it? And what are you leaving for who's the strategic person that's looking at you? Because what do they want? Like, which one do you fit with?
Wow. So are you mostly looking for companies that are like, we're babies right now, here's where we're going, and the goal is an exit in 5 years? Are you looking for people who are looking to get acquired or bought?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that there's this unwritten thing that sometimes people feel like awkward asking, like, what's your exit strategy? Because I don't want the brand to think I'm only in it for the money, because I am in it for the passion, but I'm also giving you my money. I want return. So I found that there's no shame in being like, what is the exit strategy? Who's the dream acquirer? Like, I ask all those pointed questions. But I love getting into a brand super early. Like, if they've already passed a $20 million valuation, I probably won't even look at it. Whereas all the funds that I talk to, I have a lot of friends who work at funds, they only look at companies that are at 50 to 100 million valuation and beyond. But I look for super early, which is taking a huge risk. But then that's where my trend spotting and what I think is a skill I've developed to spot good trends comes in.
Tell me about that. What does that mean, and how do you do it?
So it comes from being a consumer, because I eat for the consumer products that I invest in. I'm the consumer. So I knew, so one company I'm invested into is called Source, and they are chocolate vitamins. And so, the pink one is for glow, the blue one has hair, and it has clinical data behind it to show that there's efficacy, the vitamins work. So when the gummy vitamin craze happened like 4 or 5 years ago, and companies like Goli, it got like $1 billion valuation, I was like, who the hell is eating these gummies? Like, gummies hurt your stomach. There's no way there's a vitamin in this. I just kind of called bullshit on the trend.
Sure.
And I always said, I was like, someone needs to do this with chocolate. It won't hurt my stomach, and I would be way happier to eat it. Then I meet Source, and they were doing that, and they had the scientific data behind it, showing me that the chocolate is heated to a certain point, blah, 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 and all this, they have the data behind its efficacy, that the vitamin works. I eat it, and I'm having like a piece of dark chocolate. It's delicious. It's fun. They have amazing branding. And I was like, I've been saying for years, who's eating gummies, because they're not real. And then I've been saying, we need someone to do this in chocolate. Boom, insert the chocolate company that was doing it right. So that's what I mean when I say I look for trends. I always said, with how I said with Partake, I've had every gluten-free cookie under the sun, every packaged cookie, and I knew that there was still something missing, and they were doing it. With a lot of my companies, that's how I feel like I found it, just from me being the consumer needing something. And I think that'll be super. I'm having lunch with a friend on Thursday who's a new mom, and she's an investor friend. And she's like, just wait until you have a kid. You're going to freak out about all the products you need to start and all the things you need to invest in. Because me as someone who doesn't have a kid right now doesn't even know the needs or wants of that person, but she does. So when I become that person, I'll have a whole new category of things that I'm like, why doesn't this exist? The second someone makes it, I will give them all my money.
Interesting.
Like Eat Better. Remember, I think we sent you guys the bagels.
Yeah. Those were great.
Yeah. So it's like people always told me to come out as no bread. I should come out with a bread and like a low carb bread. And so Eat Better, by the way, has gluten in it. Their gluten-free launches in December. But I was like, oh my God, they made like the first ever true low carb bread using technology that strips out the carbohydrate in it. So you're having an actual bagel just without the carbs. And that's because of a technology that was through an enzyme that removed the carbohydrates. So it's when I met Amy, who is the founder of Eat Better, I was like, oh my God, like I've been thinking for years, do I just come out with this bread company? I don't know how to come out with a bread company, but she was doing it and doing it right. And then I invested in her.
Wow. Okay. So these conversations, you're like, here's X amount of money. You don't have to say like exact terms, but like, are you getting equity in?
So whatever that dollar amount I put in translates to X percentage of that round. And then as a company raises another round, you get diluted a little bit because now there's more shares put into the market. But that's why I try and get in as early as possible. But there's, as an influencer, I hear of influencers structuring deals where they get like X amount of equity for posting on social media. For me, I've never done that because I found that the math like never added up. Like I wasn't given that the amount of equity you're giving like 0.01%, which is like, no, you can just pay me. So I've never done those situations, but there are different ways of structuring things. But it's typically for me, because I just do money investments, it's whatever that percentage of the round is my ownership, and that ownership can change over time.
Have you ever discussed like, I want to become a board member in addition to this?
So I'm an advisor for, I think 3 of them. Cool. I'm an advisor. And typically board seats are reserved for like fund leaders.
Right.
And that's like a later stage thing. Like when a company is super late stage, they'll create a board because at that point they need like these voices helping them. But yeah, no, I'm an advisor for some too, which usually you get advisor equity for, which will be on top of my monetary investment.
What do you wish you would have learned about investing when you were first starting?
So when you first start investing and you're more naive, I was writing bigger checks. And now I just know too much about like, okay, most companies don't hit their projections and things like that, where now I'm a little bit more of a reserved investor. Yep. So I actually don't wish I knew something more. I kind of love that I was a little bit more ballsier and riskier when I was younger and didn't know. Because now with anything, the more information you have, I'm a little bit more, Whereas I think I was a little bit more riskier, and that risk has rewarded itself in most of the situations, but I think there was a beauty to being naive when I first started. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. Look, even all of the mistakes that all of us have made along the way, it's like you learn something from it regardless. Exactly. But I feel like when it comes to, I have been so naive in certain situations and been taken advantage of. I'm like, okay, that happened. And now I know these are the questions I'm going to ask. I'm not like, if I get a gross feeling from a founder, absolutely not. You know, you just learn things and you can do things differently.
Totally. Yeah. So I don't regret, even if an investment goes to zero, I don't regret it because I knew putting that money in, there was a chance. That wasn't me being like, I know this can go to zero. Like I actually let it sit in my gut. You might lose this before investing for each investment I've ever made. So yeah, it sucks if something doesn't pan out. And because the thing with investing, and I have people I'm actually doing a post on it this week. People in my comments tell me, they tell me that I glorify investing because I love it so much. But let's say you invest 15, you might fail on 14 of them, but all it takes is that one. So yeah, like I have that risk appetite. So if something goes to zero, I get, like, oh, bummer. But like, okay, what did I learn from that? And I can tell you with each, I'm so involved in my companies that I could pinpoint each reason for each one of them where the lesson was.
Yeah. And that's something interesting too. I feel like you're very involved in not necessarily the day-to-day operations, but in an advisor role, even it's like you're still very connected.
Sometimes I get too involved and I have to remind myself, like, I'm not on salary.
Sure.
Like, this is a lot of work and this is a little bit past my advisor grade. And now I am a little bit too like obsessed. And a lot of times with investing, the best advice is when you give your money, you walk away and you don't even think about it. It's like Ben has a couple of investments and he couldn't even tell you what year he invested in them or if they like how they're doing now, because he's like, oh yeah, no, when I invest, I know that like his mindset is like, I'm probably never going to see this money again, but I think this is a good thing to invest in. Yeah. Whereas I'm like, I better see my money again. You know, like we're just different people.
It's understanding your mindset. It's like some people love day trading and seeing the numbers go up and down, but then their hearts get broken if it's down for a day. So it's kind of knowing your limits and what you're into, and you obviously love it. And that makes a huge difference. Wow. Okay. So if someone were to start today, what is the first step? Like, obviously people could reach out to you. But like, is there a certain book you'd recommend or a blog that you'd recommend?
Honestly, the book, one of my future hopes is that I write a book because the book I read was from an older white man who, made it big. I forget, at like LinkedIn or something. Like he was a guy who had great success at a company. So he had access to the world of deals. So it wasn't the most relatable of books, but I actually do hope to, it's something that weighs heavily on my mind with this next step of where I want to take my career is, becoming a resource for people who want to learn. And whether that comes through a course or through a book or something, I think that's going to be on my horizon for the next like year to really think about like what that thing is.
Yeah, because there are a lot of different, like I could talk to you for 12 hours about a million different things.
Yeah.
And this topic in particular is so fascinating.
Yeah.
Just because you have such a long history with finance and you also have been in this unique influencer space where it's like the world can be our oyster in so many ways. And it's also the first time that any type of job like this has ever existed.
Right.
So it's like we can kind of carve our own path in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Which is weird, but also incredible. Like anyone at home could start putting things out there and start growing an audience and teaching things or being entertaining and eventually work with brands who will pay them and start investing in different ways.
Exactly.
And even if it's like you were saying, like small amounts, if you're working a 9 to 5 or whatever you're working, there's still opportunities out there. Cause I think, like I was saying, I studied social work, that this world was just really far from anything that I ever learned.
Yeah.
And so to realize like these kinds of things don't have to be just old white men.
Correct.
Right? Like we have so much access at this point in the world, and it's very exciting.
Totally.
And it's never too late, right?
Never too late. And that's the thing too. If I decide, in this rebirth, do I just take the next 6 months to like cool it on all fronts while I figure out who Nicole Bruno is? It's not like I'm missing out on 6 months. It's okay if there's no like first place I need to be in. You can literally pick this up whenever.
Yeah. Okay. So scenario.
Yes.
Nicole Bruno, you are exploring your new life as this person. You aren't an influencer. You aren't an investor. What are you doing?
I'm a mom.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And like, I think that there is zero shame to be had by anyone who chooses to like make that their work, being just like a mom.
100%.
I think like there's this, people love to shame anyone. Oh, you're a mom, but you work. That's a shame. Or you're a mom, you're just a mom. That's a shame. Like, I think like that's always been a purpose of mine. So I look forward to that being my work.
I love that you said that because there's so much judgment in the world about everything.
Yeah,
no matter what we do, someone is like, hating and judging.
If you're pregnant and you complain that your like stomach hurts that day from being pregnant, it's like you're not grateful that you're, it's like, no, they're so grateful, but they're having a stomach ache, like everyone's just so quick to judge all the time and project what they're feeling onto other people. So I think that's just silly. I think that you should let everyone be happy, let them complain if something's bothering them, like,
Yeah, it's like understanding empathy.
Yeah.
And everyone has their own life experience. And they're all important in different ways.
Yeah.
Wow. So Nicole, anything else that you want to share about your experience in kind of moving from the influencer world into investing? Anything else?
I would say just stay tuned for my constant evolution of like, it's okay to not have the answer. Like right now I'm such a go-getter. I've always known what's next. And right now I have no idea. And I've had this narrative for the last like 6 months to a year where I'm like, my work right now is just like to be a wife and to learn what that is. Cause that's a new thing. Like Ben has to travel for a few weeks and I'm going to go with him. And that's work as a wife, like, cause that's for our family to like, go support your man. And I'm not going to be apart for like 3.5 weeks after we just got married. That's like silly. So, figuring out that role. So, learning that role, and then let's see where right now my Instagram handle is NOBREAD, but by the time people are listening, it might be Nicole Bruno. I might just like have a margarita one night and come home and change it. Like, I don't know.
See, I love it.
Yeah.
We never have to just be one thing.
Yes.
We can be anything that we want to be. And you are a true testament of like the drive and the determination to be like, this is what I want to do. This is where I feel led right now.
Yeah.
This is where I'm at right now. And that might look different in the future. And that's okay.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, Nicole, you're awesome.
Thanks. You are too.
Thanks. So where can people find you?
At NOBREAD, or if it's not there anymore, check at Nicole Bruno, or someone has that handle right now, I think. But
seriously,
I searched Nicole Bruno. There's a lot of them. Like
interesting.
Nick Bruno 1, 2. Like there's so many of them. So I don't know what the handle is, but like I'll always look for me on NOBREAD, and it'll lead you to some instructions if I'm not there anymore. But for now,
we'll
at NOBREAD, yeah. But I'm gonna have, my thought is when I change to always have a something being NOBREAD, because I'm gonna keep the handle.
Of course.
So yeah, at NOBREAD, and I have a blog, NOBREAD.com. And if you ever have any questions about investing, just always DM me, and I'm gonna start really talking a lot more about investing on my pages.
I am very much looking forward to that.
Thanks.
Thanks for hanging out with me today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Cool.
Good job.